It's the Teeing Off podcast. We're here in Park Ridge, John Borneman and Matt Harness. It's a special episode for a few reasons today. It's episode number 10 all time, 5 of this season. And we're here with friend of the podcast, although oftentimes behind the scenes friend, Barry Cronin. What's going on, Barry?
Well, it's the afternoon. You're here in my office, John, and it's great to have you here. And Matt's already been here once, and he decided never to come back, but now he's here anyway because you dragged him.
It's nice like kind of like the behind the scenes of maybe when MTV did the Cribs. You get to peel behind the curtain and see what really happens.
It's a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain.
Well, Barry is the owner-operator of Cronin Communications. Works with a lot of the local golf events in the area. That's Encompass Championship and the BMW Championship, Western Amateur. Yeah, it's a long list. See, look at
John Deere Classic.
John Deere Classic.
So that's how Matt and I come to know Barry, and in another life, you were a golf writer for the Sun-Times. Is that right?
This is true. I was a golf writer at the Sun-Times after I had been a Cityside reporter for the Sun-Times. I started there in 1982, and I worked Cityside for 6 years. 4 years, a couple of years after I got there, Rupert Murdoch bought the Sun-Times, so our news hall went down. I was afraid I was going to have to cover Wingo Bingo, the daily lottery that he does at the New York Post and started at the Sun-Times. So I didn't want to be the Wingo Bingo writer, so I decided it might be a good opportunity to go into sports because I knew Murdoch always felt that sports was sort of the common denominator among all classes of people. And so he was willing to spend money on sports, and he was willing to give you space to write. And so I was interested in golf, and I kind of weaseled my way into the sports department and wound up covering some golf for about 6 years.
You covered young Tiger Woods when he came to Chicago?
I did. I covered I think I was maybe the first person in the Chicago area ever to interview I called Earl Woods.
Okay.
Tiger was playing in the Western Junior at Chicago Golf Club in the early 90s. I can't remember the exact year, but I think he was still a teenager, maybe 16, 17, and but he was already a phenom, and I'd read about him, and so I thought, well, I'm calling the guy. So I called up Earl, and I got Earl on the phone. Earl told me all the stories. All the stories. I was on the phone with him for an hour and a half. He told me about why he gave Tiger the nickname Tiger because of his lost Vietnamese buddy in Vietnam, where Earl had served for a number of years, during the war, and how I knew my son was going to be famous someday, and I knew that, I wanted to communicate with this guy who was missing in action or whatever. And I knew his nickname, that guy's nickname was Tiger, and of course I named my son Tiger, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was great. I mean, and of course everybody. And then when all this happened, he talked even about how Tiger was going to be more than just the greatest golfer in the world. He was going to do world peace and bring everybody together and the whole thing. So it was, and then I saw him play at Chicago Golf Club. I actually got to talk to Tiger during that interview a little bit, and then he came to play at Chicago Golf, and I think he made it to like the quarterfinals or something like that.
That's right.
And he lost, and I remember I interviewed him. I went out there, and it was phenomenal. He was down like five. He was down like by 5 holes.
Well, he was hitting it all over the place, wasn't he?
He hit it all over the place, but the point was he was down like 4 or 5 holes, and he mounted this unbelievable comeback. And you just watched it, and I can't tell you what he did, but I remember he hit it in a straw. They have a lot of reeds and stuff out at Chicago Golf. It's because it's old-fashioned. He hit it out of there, hit it on the green, and I swear to God, I remember he made a putt that must have been 55. You thought the one that Sergio made the other day at the Players was long? This thing went over the hill, through the dale, down, under round. I'm watching this putt, and I'm going, and he made it. And the poor kid that he was playing against was like, oh my God, well, how did that happen? And he goes, oh yeah, that's right, I'm playing Tiger Woods. And the poor kid just collapsed. And Tiger just making pars and birdies, the other kid's hitting in the bunker, and it's like, oh God. And then Tiger won, and then he lost, I think, and he lost in the finals. And I wasn't there for that. For some reason, I had to cover something else. But I called him up, And I said, well, Tiger, what was the deal? Why did you? How come you didn't win the tournament? Oh, he says, my dad had me out really late last night. He was out. He says, I didn't get to bed till really late because Earl famously would travel with all around the country, and he knew people and he partied.
Right.
He liked to have a drink and everything. God rest his soul, by the way. And Tiger said he had me out a little late last night.
So you used to be able on a phone conversation, basis with Tiger.
Do you still have Tiger's cell phone number?
Yeah.
He probably hasn't changed it since then.
No, he hasn't. Yeah.
But you're just a little background. You're a Chicago guy, Rogers Park,
right? Grew up in the Edgewater, we call it now, and now that it's less of a great neighborhood. When I grew up, there was a great neighborhood. Then it got to be sort of went down a little bit. Now it's back, but when it went down a little bit, they give it a fancy name. They call it Edgewater Glen. So I never knew it as Edgewater Glen. I never even knew it. I knew it was like, I live in St. Gertrude's. I went to St. Gertrude's school, in the neighborhood, walked back and forth, and it was the greatest thing in the world. And the nuns were awesome, and they made me learn where to put commas and
how many times did you get slapped with a ruler? I got to imagine a lot.
Couple of times. No, I was goody two shoes. I would get good grades, so that was my kryptonite on them. That kept them off me a little bit, even though I ran with a little bit of a bad crew.
And then Loyola, and my wife Jenny knows Pat Sullivan, who you grew up with really well. It's quite a
Pat and I
crew.
played Pop Warner football together. We played on the basketball team at St. Gertrude's together. We ran around and went to high school together. We actually hitchhiked together to Loyola back in the day, and Pat's very successful and a good guy.
Yeah, and he's now Park Ridge. For those who don't know, Pat Sullivan's kind of a mayor of sorts of Chicago. He kind of knows everybody. Sits on the floor at Bulls games and goes to hockey games. And Soldier Field, he's got seats practically on the Bears bench and belongs to several of the big golf clubs around here.
I wish I knew him better.
Right, sounds like a good friend to have.
But yeah, no, we're happy to have you. I mean, part of the reason is Monday, the Encompass, sort of the golf season kicks off in a way with the Encompass Championship Media Day at North Shore Country Club. Tom Lehman, the defending champ, will be back here. Why don't you tell us where we are with the Encompass third year now in Glenview?
Right. Tom Lehman will be back in town, defending champion for the third edition of the Encompass Championship in Chicago. This is actually the fourth edition of the Encompass Championship because the first one was actually down in the Tampa Bay area, and then they moved it up here to their home office. Encompass Insurance is a subsidiary of Allstate and kind of a business-to-business insurance company. It's one of many that's kind of under the radar in a lot of ways. Unlike all the ones that you see on TV every 5 minutes, State Farm, Geico, Progressive, with all those unbelievably fantastic, funny, entertaining commercials. There's most insurance companies are kind of business to business, under the radar. Nobody even knows what the heck they do. Except that nobody knows anything about insurance except the fact that they hate to pay the annual fees.
Chip Beck told us as much last week. He said before it came to Chicago, I had no idea what Encompass was. I had no idea anything about it. So
right.
You don't see Tom Ely doing some sketch comedy on TV?
You could get him.
I think he's got a walk-on thing in Mad Men.
Get him teamed up with like a cartoon character.
So, I mean, he's a really nice guy and been a great ambassador for that tournament.
He has been, and it was really. He was sort of the moving force behind bringing the Champions Tour back to Chicago after, like a dozen years. I mean, he hadn't been here since the Ameritech Senior Open, which was, that was when Ameritech was, before it bought AT&T. Mm-hmm. Ameritech actually bought AT&T and then assumed the AT&T name. They killed their own company. They killed their own name. So,
well, it's been good to have, an annual tournament now that the Western Open evolved into the BMW Championship, and it alternates between Chicago and another city. The Encompass has been the one that's here every year. I mean, Chicago, it's great for someone like me, John, and people that love golf to have a tournament here every year. I mean, what's been your take on sort of the reception that it's received? And
I think it's had a good reception in Chicago. I mean, this is a very competitive market in terms of sports. You have
especially in the summer.
Oh, I mean, especially like all the time.
Yeah.
Because, you have, even though you have 2 sports radio stations, they're basically, they're top 40 stations. They're playing the hits. So
Right.
the hits are the Bears and the Cubs and the Bulls and maybe the White Sox. And golf is a niche sport. Those sports I look at as male soap operas. Who's got a hamstring pull, who's holding out, is Matt Forte going to be at mini camp? None of this matters, of course. But, that's just what people are really interested in, and that's what they do. Golf, unlike those sports, which are soap operas, golf is a circus. It comes in for a week, and then it's gone. So it's hard for, those radio stations to sort of have an attention span for what's going on, in golf. And so you'll have a couple of golf radio shows, but really, they don't get prominently played.
Yeah, well, that's one thing you notice, and you start to go to some of these media events like we do a lot. I mean, the thing that comes up over and over again is the fact that the PGA Tour is not in Chicago all the time, but that, at least among golf writers, we seem to think that Chicago is really a good golf market or has a lot of golf fans. What I've come to think is that it seems like sometimes we have fans of the highest level golf. I mean, when the PGA Tour is in town, when they come and play a major at Medina, I mean, they consume it completely, and people turn out in droves. Do you think that, there's enough interest here to continue to have the Champions Tour? I know we have, there'll probably be another sponsor coming in. There's a little uncertainty with the Encompass Championship. I mean, is there a place for that?
Yeah, this is the last year for Encompass sponsoring the tournament. I think they've been really pleased. They got a lot out of it, but there are different marketing philosophies with companies, and that's really what the Champions Tour is. It's a market. It's all of this stuff is a commercial marketing platform, really. But yeah, I think there's room for a Champions Tour event for sure. I think you're not going to get as much interest as you are in Rory and Tiger and Jordan Spieth and these guys. I mean, these are the most dynamic players in the prime of their career. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And currently, the Champions Tour is not the way it started. I mean, it started with Jack, with Arnie, really, and there isn't anybody else with more dynamic. There's not a more dynamic or charismatic player in the world, or athlete in the world, really, than Arnold Palmer. And then, you had Nicklaus and Trevino and Player and different eras of players. And now you've got the current Champions Tour where you've got some great, really great players, guys with, won majors left and right. So, I think there is room for it. It's not as big a crowd. But the other thing is, though, from a marketing standpoint, it's a lower price point for people who are trying to market. And if you're a small business, small business being, $100 million a year or $200 million a year, you can take your best clients out, buy very reasonably priced pro-am spots, and play with pros. Sure, Mark Wiebe isn't Rory McIlroy, but he still, compared to everybody else you're playing golf with, he can hit it 300 yards and putt and chip and all that stuff, and he might not be as big a name or other guys like him, but still, it's a relaxed atmosphere, it's a lot of fun, and you can schmooze clients, and really that's what it's about.
How much, so John Daly's almost 50. Yeah. How much do you think that pro-am spot goes for?
Well, yeah.
Let's start the bidding.
Well, exactly. Well, yeah, I think that's part of the that's probably part of the negotiations, with the sponsors. Like, hey, our CEO is going to play with John Daly. Okay.
Hey, he was just in Chicago last week. We talked about him throwing out the first pitch at the White Sox game
and bartending.
The guest bartender.
That's right. And I actually now here's the interesting thing. Case in point, I heard him on sports radio talking about. It's not because it's because he's an everyman. Everybody knows who John Daly is. Everybody knows who Tiger is. Everybody knows who Rory is. Usually you can't get those guys on the air unless they're promoting some sort of a product. So
John
it was
Daly
great to hear.
He would never promote a product.
He's just great. He is, one of my, in my past life, I covered John Daly when he won the 1991 PGA Championship at Crooked Stick.
Oh, you traveled down
to
Chicago sometimes, sent you down?
We actually did that. That was.
A
I
road
think
trip.
I
Really?
drove. Yeah, I believe I drove.
Yeah, that was Crooked Stick is Carmel,
Indiana.
Yeah, just like a
Okay.
sort of a ritzy suburb of Indianapolis.
Dan Quayle's hometown. That's where Dan Quayle lives. It's really the Carmel is really sort of the, the Winnetka of, or Lake Forest, Barrington-ish, a little more modern than some of those. There's a little some newer homes there, but that's a very upscale, wealthy area for sure. But that was so much fun. Daly, as you may know, was like the 5th alternate or something like that. Nick Price's wife was having a baby that week. He didn't have a caddy. Daly didn't have a caddy, so he took Nick's caddy. And Nick's caddy's nickname was Squeaky because he had a funny squeaky voice. And of course, Daly was hitting it 310 off the tee, which at the time was nobody did. Yeah. Nobody did it. He was, he was so far, and he was so entertaining, so funny. He came in the press room. He's just such an engaging, great personality, and it was like totally unlike all the guys who fashioned themselves to be Ben Hogan, when really all they were really boring guys in khaki pants. Daly was great, and you couldn't stop writing John Daly.
He stole your media members' hearts.
He was tremendous, and everybody was rooting for him. And I remember we went out on Sunday. He and now here's a trivia question: Who was in the final pairing with John Daly on the final day at the PGA Championship in 1991? I'll give you a hint: former Quad City Classic winner, champion.
I have no idea. I mean, honestly, have
say Steve Stricker.
No,
that's before his time.
Kenny Knox. Kenny Knox.
I've never heard that name.
John Daly hit it so far past Kenny Knox off the tee, it was embarrassing. He hit it 60 yards past him, I swear to God. People are standing 4 deep, lying in the fairway, yeah, and they're yelling, and he's coming off the greens, high-fiving everybody, and they're just like, yeah, smoking a cigarette, throwing it out, getting to the tee, yay, John. It was like great. It was like being at a ball game. It was like being in right field bleachers, at Wrigley on a Sunday afternoon in about the 8th inning,
right.
When everybody's had a few pops.
So, I mean, is he a guy that can fit into a Champions Tour? Because I've been to several of these events, and they're great. They're great for the fans because the access, the players are all very approachable. Will some of these fans be turned off by John Daly?
No. People like John Daly. I mean, we, golf purists, shall we say, and people who are very close to the game and stuff like that. A lot of them, his behavior, is often controversial, shall we say. That's my neutral word for controversial. It's controversial. So there's a lot of people that, that don't like him, and they don't like his act and the whole thing, and, feel maybe he doesn't respect the game for whatever. But, among the regular people, they don't care about that. I mean, people don't care. People... They're going to root for Ray Rice. They're going to root for, they're not paying attention to the controversy that surrounds these players for the most part. People still root for Tiger. He's got a very controversial situation. He had one. And so, I think Daly will be great for the senior tour. And number one, he won't miss the cut because there is no cut.
Right.
There's only 3 rounds. And then he'll play they have a couple of pro-ams. He'll probably play in one. But, and the other thing is,
there's precedent, too, for parking a trailer on site.
Absolutely. He and Elkington just pull their trailers up again.
Is there room for 2 trailers? That
Hey, with John Daly, they'll make room.
Right, yeah.
Parking on the tennis courts.
Yeah. So, I do think that'd be great. I think he'd be great for the senior tour, or the Champions Tour, because, he's well known, and they need a star. They need stars on that tour.
Right.
And it doesn't matter so much how well you play golf or what. Playing golf is great. It'd be great to have him win, and he probably will win. A couple of events, which is important. And but I think people, he's a curiosity. People like him. And,
we talk about names. The tour, the Champions Tour needing names. I mean, you guys have got two pretty good champions since you've been at North Shore with Craig Stadler, who it's been a while since he was a name on the PGA Tour, but everyone remembers the Walrus, and I think I used to play like a Sega video game that he used to be on the cover of.
That's probably the most important thing.
And Lehman last year. So I mean,
so 2 winners, both with major championship pedigree.
Right. You got a Masters champion in Stadler and a British Open champion in Lehman, and Freddie Couples finished second the year that Stadler won. He's right there. And I can't remember who finished second last year, but anyway. But
again, it was came down to a putt on 18.
Right,
once again.
Came down to a putt. So I think that it speaks pretty well of the golf course, too. And by the way, Michael Allen was. By the way, we were in the same place with Michael Allen afterwards, as you recall. Anyway, but so these are good. The golf course is a tremendous course, and I mean they love it. It's really the North Shore has really come out of this. I think with its reputation really enhanced, and so I think it's been good for the club.
Well, I think Tom. You said Tom Lehman's going to be there on Monday. I told you I was going to give you some guff about this. Was that last year at the media day, making poor Craig Stadler. The common practice is to recreate the game the tournament winning shot, and you had Stadler out there on 18 green.
Yeah. Stadler doesn't have the most patience in the world.
Well, he was still probably. I think his back was probably bugging him. Or
That's
I think
right.
He was in a little bit of pain.
It was great though. He putts it 3 or 4 times.
He made it when it counted during the tournament, and he putted it a few times.
Right.
And Barry just keeps putting the ball down in front of him, making him slap it again.
Well, and then he said to me, "How are you going to make me do this?
He finally make me do this."
I said, "Geez." Then I felt bad, and I said, "Well, why don't we have some media guys do it?" And then Ryan Baker from Channel 2, noted golfer, hit the ball and just hit it 50 feet.
Not close.
Left, not even close. I mean, Jesus, not even in the ballpark.
Speed was so wrong. Direction was so wrong.
It looked like, it looked like he was hitting to the right side and driving the run on third base. Put it that way. It was so far from being over second base, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Anyway, but on his next putt, Stadler actually lined him up and said, "Listen, here's I don't know if he held the putter face right behind the ball, but it was pretty close to that." And then Ryan Baker made it. He gave the old fist pump, Tiger Woods. Hey, like he did something.
I'm guessing the clip was edited a little differently for the nightly news.
Well, he wasn't the first Channel 2 sports guy to make an impressive putt. Actually, the great Howard Sudbury, before he became Arlington racetrack marketing maven guy, made a putt on 16 out at Cog Hill that was recreated. He recreated the Russ Cochran putt when he beat Greg Norman back in 1991. So anyway,
and you run, and if I'm gonna make fun of you for the one the Encompass one, I should tell you. I should mention the John Deere Classic Media Day last year, where I think you guys had Jordan Spieth recreate his bunker shot that he made to get into the playoff, right?
Yes. In fact,
he did pretty good on that one.
He did. So Jordan Spieth came back to the John Deere Classic Media Day last year as defending champion. Where he won his first PGA Tour event there in 2013, and he was being interviewed by a representative for CNN International, a guy named Shane O'Donoghue, who's an Irish lad from the old sod itself, and he came and was doing a little behind-the-scenes thing, and which was amazing. He flew from Dublin to do this. So he did this piece, and the last thing was he said to him, Jordan, would you mind? Could we go over to the 18th hole where you made that bunker shot, and I'd like to interview you over there. He said, sure. And he says, hey, I'd like to try to make that shot again. I'd like to see what that feels like to do. So really, because we were all kind of hoping that he would have that reaction, but we didn't want to force they just got finished playing Memorial. He was on a plane, all that stuff. You don't want to force a guy to do that. But he brought it up, and that's great when you're dealing with a 20-year-old because everybody's got energy when they're 20. Hey, by the time you're 30, you can't get out of the chair. You got a lot to do. But somebody went and got his gap wedge out of the car. Claire Peterson, the tournament director, had picked him up at the airport, so his wedge was in his car. He went into the bunker, hit it, the goddamn thing went in the hole. And the great thing was that both myself and Jordan's manager that travels with him, had it on our cell phone video, and they left shortly thereafter. They went to the airport, and they posted on Instagram right away, and we wound up posting it later. So it was great. And the PGA Tour took it, and it got on CBS.com. And then it actually ran during the tournament itself. They put it on. That CBS put it on. They took it right off of my cell phone. I gave it to him. I said, yeah, there it is.
So are we expecting then, because I think you said Jordan's back
this year. Jordan Spieth will be back at the John Deere Classic this year, yeah.
Which is awesome.
We're really, really excited to have him. He finished 7th last year, great title defense. He had a lot of people out there watching him. Yeah. Of course, it's great to have 2 Masters champions in our field.
Right? Who's the other one? I know this.
You know this one?
Yeah.
2007.
Oh, Zach Johnson?
There you go.
Yeah,
There you
Zach
go.
Johnson. I should have known that one. But so we can assume that Jordan will play the 18th. He'll hit his second shot into those bunkers, and then where he's got a 100% conversion rate.
Exactly right. Just as I don't know if you remember, but there was one year Steve Stricker won the tournament 3 years in a row. I think it was last year. He hit his tee shot into the fairway bunker, and he had this hanging lie. It was really totally a slice lie, and it was like a long way away from the hole. It was about 200 yards out, or 190.
And for those who haven't seen it, there's a pond short left of that green. You're flying your second shot over the pond.
So he hit it up there, and wound up making the putt to win, which was pretty exciting. And then the next year, Zach Johnson, when he was in the second shot in the playoff, second time through 18 in the playoff, he actually hit it to like unbelievable, like 2 feet out of that same bunker. So it was crazy. So then the next year we had Zach in the bunker. We recreated the bunker shot, which was really unfair. I mean, my God. I mean, if you get Craig Stadler taking a 12-footer on the 18th green, having a guy have to hit a 5-iron or whatever the hell he hit, I think it was a 7-iron out of that bunker. When he just came out from a press conference, it's like that was not good.
Is this the lesson that to win the John Deere Classic, you have to be in a bunker?
You have to be. Yeah, exactly. And it was the fairway bunker, and then Jordan made it the greenside bunker. So yeah. So the John Deere, the last we've had some fantastic finishes there. I mean, it's crazy. I have people come up and tell me, God, I watched the tournament. It was really great. Everybody thinks that the John Deere, we have we don't have a players' championship field, or we don't have all the big names. Phil Mickelson's not there, and Tiger's not there, and all that stuff. But you turn it on and you go, wow, there's something happening here. And I think it's because the last 5 or 6 holes at that golf course are so good. You have the drivable par 4, then you have on 14. It's about 280 yards, and it's a funny green. You guys have played there. The green is kind of pitched up, and if you miss it, you kind of roll off, and then you got a pitch shot and everything like that. But you can hit the green, and then 15 is a hard par 5, really good hole. 16 is a par 3, and 17 is an easily eagleable 17th hole. It's great. So there's always nobody knows what's going to happen. Oh my God, somebody could make eagle on 17, and they almost always, the guys that are playing well, they almost always birdie it.
Right.
So you need to have a 2-shot lead when you go to the 18th tee, because the guy behind you can tie you right away. And then 18 is a really very difficult hole. It's the second toughest hole in the golf course. So you can hit it in the water, you can hit the sand, you can hit it over. So it's really those last few holes. There's a lot going on.
You guys get a bit of a rough break with the time in the schedule, just because it's right in front of the British Open,
right?
But it's kind of interesting in the way that you offer those players who are going on to the British kind of you try to give them some perks and make that transition a little easier.
Right. When you have a tough date, it's kind of a compromised date in that you're the week before a major, and not only a week before a major. Houston's a week before the Masters, so what do? They got to do something to accommodate players. So that they do. They made all the conditions at Houston,
right,
just like Augusta. So that guys, foreign players will come in and play. Guys that aren't based in the U.S. will come and play there, and they get it. And Mickelson likes to play the week before a major, But having the geographical challenge, going across the Atlantic Ocean is difficult. So, but you know what? When you got lemons, you got to make lemonade. So in the great, the can-do spirit of John Deere, which is an absolutely great American company, they decided that rather than keep raising the purse, which you're still not going to improve your field much, even if you raise the purse. Right. We're going to do something that gives you value. And what we do is we've done a charter for the last 6 or 7 years now that goes direct to whatever the airport is that's closest to where the British Open is going to be. We bring them. Each player. So the key for this is that guys would go to the British Open, fly commercial, and they almost inevitably lose their luggage. They lose their golf clubs. They lose their golf clubs. Man. This happened to Zach Johnson.
Right.
And
it's good for a story every year.
Yeah. and so they'll get their clubs will get there Thursday morning. So they're playing practice round or whatever with something out of the pro shop, and then their clubs get there 20 minutes before their tee time. and they just figure it'd be better to travel with the club, so they put them on the jet. We get the caddy on the jet and the manager or the girlfriend or the wife or whoever. So each player that wants to travel on the jet has access to 3 seats, can buy 3 seats, and we sell the seats on the plane. Seats are $1,500 each, and that money goes to charity, goes to a Birdies for Charity fund, and is redistributed among the charities among the 500 charities that participate in Birdies for Charity. So they get a tax write-off. They get to bring their clubs on the plane. They get to bring their caddy. And now, the sports writer, the great sports writer mythology, which is that, you have to, if you're really serious about winning the British Open, you have to get there the week before and let your body clock adjust to the thing. Are you kidding me? Really? Are you kidding me? Right? So or the subtext is, hey, the Scottish Open will give you like $1 million to come over there and play in their tournament. They'll give you an appearance fee, or $500,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is. That's why they have certain big names in that field, including Phil.
Mickelson always goes and plays.
He goes and plays, and have I seen the contract? No, but I guarantee you he's being paid a fee, and that's fine. God bless him. And some guys have turned down that fee to play in the John Deere Classic, including Zach and Jordan, which is very cool.
Well, they do such a good job. I know the players I've talked to just enjoy that spot on the calendar, because a lot of times, you do play in a Players' Championship, which has, that mob crowd feel, which is a good thing. It's very exciting. John Deere offers more of a bring your family to. There's not that many stops on tour where players can bring their family and their kids, and I know you tell me they ride around on the John Deere tractors, and sort of a fun, laid-back week for these guys who oftentimes are in very hectic.
It's true, and it's summertime when kids are out of school, and it's a little bit more freedom in their schedule. They can bring their wives, and it is friendly. We have an event on Wednesday night called the Big Dig, where John Deere has a test site where they bring their customers out. Customers want to buy a front end loader or some kind of a construction equipment, and they said, well, come out and try it. And they bring them out to this test site, which is about 5-10 miles from John Deere, out in the middle of nowhere in Illinois, and they drive around with these big dump trucks and all this stuff. So they decided years ago, hey, we should do this for the players, because what's the guy want to do? What's like the big fantasy of a lot of these guys grew up in in rural areas and all that stuff. None of these guys grew up in Manhattan for the most part, and they're outdoor guys, a lot of them. And then you know what? They bring their kids, they drive around, and they have such fun. All the family can drive around in these giant pieces of the construction equipment. It's huge. They do a barbecue. There's a little country band. And then we do. Then there's a demonstration where all the guys that work out at that test site, they do a little choreographed show for the people and for the people who sit in the bleachers. And then there's a fireworks show every year. So it's just kind of a family feel type of thing.
So and if you're looking for times when the PGA Tour crosses through Chicago's orbit, I mean it's definitely within range.
It's the one annual PGA Tour event that's actually in the state of Illinois, and you know what? It's a couple hours from Naperville, so it's great. It's $25 to get in, and you can you can buy tickets online and print them out in advance, and it's even less. So it's good. And the other thing about it is, like as you mentioned, there's not 1 million people out there. So when your player comes out of the scoring trailer, and signs a scorecard, the kids are lined up, and guess what? They sign autographs. Mm-hmm. They don't sign necessarily all of them, but they'll sign autographs. And you have a chance, if you bring your child out in a very family-friendly environment, to do that.
Well, but this year, there could be 1 million people with Jordan Spieth being out there. This guy has turned into Mr. Popularity after winning the Masters. And he does seem, like a guy who will sit there and sign autographs. I remember him at, was it the Players, when he misses the cut, he's still signing autographs. Right. So he kind of gets it, what it's all about, with the fans and, hoping to make that connection. Right. So for the John Deere to have, this guy, to take anything away from Zach Johnson, but Jordan Spieth seems to be sort of in another stratosphere.
He's the hottest guy. He's the hottest golf property in the world right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. we were very blessed to have him win our tournament, and it really elevated, our tournament in a way. I mean, being associated with him has been great.
We'd have to say that the defending champion is, of course, Brian Hartman from the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
and you know what? Brian played real well last week at the Players Championship, and we're looking forward to seeing him. He'll be back at our media day, which is on June 1st. So.
June 1st, right? I'll be there for that.
Yeah.
So.
Kevin Kisner, who also went to Georgia, was in the playoff.
Don't pretend like you knew that guy went to Georgia. You told me that you didn't even know. Mr. Georgia didn't even know that Kisner went to Georgia.
Well, one thing I knew.
You don't get to claim that.
But Barry has a good story about Kisner that he told me from last year he was doing the big dig, or getting on a tractor. Anyway, Kisner is in South Carolina.
Do we know this story?
Maybe I was dreaming this.
Yeah, I think you might have.
But he's
a regular at the John Deere Classic.
Yeah, he's from Aiken, South Carolina, which is a small town.
Yeah,
okay.
So the John Deere Classic is right in his wheelhouse.
For sure.
And he's the kind of guy that he was in a playoff with Jim Furyk at Hilton Head, was in the playoff with the Players. He's primed to break through. So
He sure is.
Is there any guarantees that we can get 2 Georgia guys in a row?
Well, that would be unbelievable.
That would be
unbelievably terrible. Yes. Well, again, this is the Teeing Off podcast. It's John Borneman and Matt Harness here with Barry Cronin. Barry, speaking of guys who are sort of hot right now, like Jordan Spieth, how about Rickie Fowler at the Players? Did you catch much of his final day?
Yeah, it was very impressive, and more power to him. He's a fine young guy, really a good guy. He has got a good history with the Western Golf Association. He actually won the Western Junior
in 2005.
Yes,
which is in the area again this year. Is that right?
It's going to be at Riverside Country Club this year, and I think it's in June. Mm-hmm. And Rickie won that, and he was also, I believe, in the quarterfinalists in the Western.
We were checking out the Western Junior photos of Rickie earlier today.
Yeah,
he's come a long ways. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He was.
The haircut looks good on him though. Like getting rid of that long hair.
He was. Listen, you got to remember it. Back in the day, he was. With the motorcycle.
Yeah, dirt bike.
Oh, dirt biker.
Right.
Dirt biker. Yeah,
that's right.
Okay. So he was from California.
Yeah,
he's like an extreme sports.
Can't really fault him that.
Yeah. No, and I remember seeing him play at the Western Amateur when it was at Point of Woods in Michigan, and good player, great kid, really a great kid.
Mm-hmm. So where do we think? So before there was sort of that silly poll with Players Anonymous that made him the.
Which came out the week or two before the Players.
I think it came out the week before.
It was this poll for who's the most overrated player on tour, right?
So then he goes out, which is a silly thing, but now that he's won this Players Championship, which is one of the biggest tournaments, now the talk comes to what John might say. Now he's all of a sudden maybe the best player to not win a major.
Right.
It's funny how one win changes perception.
Well, yeah, that's right, and it's also, I think Rickie Fowler helped elevate Players Championship too, because here's a guy who's, I think, he was a one-time winner, but he got the big contract from Puma. He gets a lot of attention. Right. Everybody wants his autograph. The kids all want his autograph. They dress like he does. So like everything else, there's jealousy and everything like that. And I think that there was a feeling that he has kind of underachieved because he was a really good college player, and then he gets the big Puma deal. Right. Cobra Puma deal, and so other players on the tour are jealous.
Right, I agree.
And they're not getting as much money, and they're not getting as much attention, and there's a little bit of vanity out there.
You can see the case for that. I mean, he wins Rookie of the Year in 2010 over Rory. He wins the Wells Fargo Championship. What was that in 2012? But other than that, I mean, the best thing he's known for is dancing around with Bubba Watson.
Well, but last year he finished in the top 5 in all 4 majors.
And that's what I was getting to, though.
Right.
You look at that, you see, okay, top 5 in all 4 majors. I mean, the one at the U.S. Open, I think I wrote down was second by 8 shots, which still, second place, you start to think, this
Martin
guy.
Keimer was like, it was ridiculous.
You start to think, all these close finishes, but, can he really win those big tournaments? And now he wins the Players, and it flips, and somehow now close finishes actually work in his favor, and you seem to now you can rewrite the narrative to say, okay, it's building up to something.
Right. In other words, to me, like as you say, the Players Championship has a great field, very competitive field. And he did finish well in those majors. He didn't win them, but he finished great. You got to give him credit for going to Butch Harmon to say, hey, you know what? Maybe he thought he was overrated. When he went to Butch Harmon a year or two ago, and say, hey, you know what? I need some help with my swing and stuff like that. And he's done some things with his game that where he's tried to improve. So you can't say that, hey, Rickie Fowler was kind of just going around and collecting checks.
Right.
I mean, he was like, hey, wait a minute. I am not playing as well as I think I should. My career's not going as well. So he went to Butch, and guess what? Butch made him better, and now he validates those top finishes in last year's majors by winning the Players, and that's good. I mean, the Players isn't a major as much as they'd like to think it is, but it's still a great event. I mean, it's got all the great players, and it's a fantastic event.
Well, in two, we forget that Rickie's only 26 years old,
right?
And a lot of times, or at least it seems like lately, and I'll blame the media with this, they sort of accelerate a guy's career and say, well, you should have won more by now.
Sure.
And the thing is, we were looking back, I mean, we forget so easily that Phil Mickelson didn't win his first major until he was 33.
That's exactly right.
And he got a lot of grief for not winning, but we looked at the median age of major championship winners, it's 32.
Yeah.
I mean, Tiger Woods was an outlier. I mean,
totally.
Jack Nicklaus outlier. I mean, these guys, this does not happen quickly for everybody. So to win Players Championship when you're 26 years old, he has a lot of time to win major championships.
He does. He absolutely does. And he's got the game. It's and he he's competitive with Rory and those guys. He played against them in Walker Cups and all that over the years, and I mean, good for Rickie Fowler.
I tell you, it doesn't seem like he was too concerned with this because, I mean, Matt, you told me about both these cases. He tied, of course, with Poulter atop that most overrated players, and weren't they joking about it with each other on Twitter?
Yeah, they joked with one another on Twitter about. So he took it with a good stride.
And prior to the Players Championship, he told me he's on the range, like goofing around, hitting left-handed shots. I mean, it seems like he's very comfortable with himself right now and very.
He should be. He's 26 years old. He should be having fun.
Right. And now, so as much as maybe people might have started to think, why can't Rickie win a big tournament? I think he's not worrying himself too much about that.
He's a very down-to-earth, nice person, which is great. And, because he doesn't think he's Ben Hogan. Like, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm in my office and all this other garbage that we went through in the 90s, and half of these guys are now commentators on TV, the guys that wouldn't talk to you. When I was reporting, I'm in my office. It's like, well, okay, come out of your office because you happen to be like a sports star. Then I need to talk to you, okay? I need a quote from you. Don't worry, I don't need a lot. Because if I needed a lot, I probably couldn't write it. But, no, I think Fowler would be great for the game. And I think it would be good if he wins more, you're going to get more of his personality. Rather than just the close, you're going to find out who he is, and that'll be good for the game too. Because I think he's a good person, and we need that. Jordan's a good person. There's not a lot. There's a little diva in a lot of these guys, and I think it'd be good to have a little anti-diva.
So who is your best player never to have won a major?
And we'll give you a few guys. Rickie, Dustin Johnson.
Sergio Garcia, Jason Day,
Henrik Stenson.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
let me ask you this: of that group, maybe who do you think is the next one to win their first major?
Well, I have a soft spot in my heart for Jason Day because Jason Day came from Australia, John Deere Classic. He was 18. We gave him his first exemption in the United States. He made the cut. Then he went to Milwaukee, which I think was the final year of the Milwaukee tournament. And I think he finished top 10. So, and then he continued to come back for many years. I mean, he came there and played with John Deere for 6 or 7 years, even after he was finishing top 2 or 3, in the majors. I mean, he was playing great. So, a terrific young guy, just a great person. So, I always root for I always root for him. And but he's had some injuries. He's kind of fallen off. And Dustin Johnson, you see him at the Masters. He kills the ball, but he can't. He's not the short game. It doesn't seem like right now for that golf course and the putting. Those are still issues for him. Fowler's.
Fowler's got top fives in every major. But of course, Dustin's got 4th at the U.S. Open, 2nd at British, 5th at PGA, 6th at Masters.
Yeah,
so he's right there too. I think I'd have it going Dustin Johnson, Jason, and of course Dustin has the 9 PGA Tour wins again. He just won a lot.
Yeah,
Dustin, Jason Day, Fowler, I think is the order I put in.
And Jason's a little bit like Rickie in that I think Jason's only got 1 or 2 PGA Tour wins.
I think it's 3. He's got a World Golf Championship. It's probably the flukiest of them with the match plays. It's not like, I don't know if it's the greatest one, but, Dustin, I think he's got 2 World Golf Championships. Those are good wins. Always go with good fields in the same way that the Players is a good field.
And I think the reason I want these guys to win is because they're good guys. They're good for the game. They're likable. That's what you need. You need guys that are open and that make the game, have a good image.
And that's what I said with John and some other friends just joking that, it would have been cool to see Kevin Kisner win that, but Rickie Fowler winning the Players is much better for golf.
Yeah. Well, if Kisner wins, and God bless him, he's a great kid, and you root for him because you like him, and he's fighting, he's 31 years old, he's been through it all, he's in a way kind of like Kevin Streelman, who's just been through everything, and like Zach Johnson, these guys are playing these Hooters tour and every goddamn tour in the world in order to succeed. And they did, but obviously Kisner doesn't have the flair, the charisma, the reputation, the clothes, the whole thing, and Rickie Fowler, hey man, come on, are you kidding me?
I agree.
The thing about it, if you say, hey, who's closer to Arnold Palmer on the charisma chart? You got to say, objectively speaking, you're gonna love Kevin Kisner all you want, and I'm sure he's a great guy, but Rickie's the man.
Right. And the way, and to the way he won that tournament.
Oh, my God.
He
just beat up that 17th hole.
So, on the telecast, he even said his mom and sister were at the tournament, left to go to the airport because he wasn't anywhere near. Then they get a text from somebody that he's made.
What Fairweather fans is that?
He made this run.
Sounds like me
trying to beat traffic.
Somebody from the tournament goes and picks him up at the airport and drives them back.
Courtesy car.
He plays the last 4 holes 5 under.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, in the playoff, he's, throwing bullseyes at number 17. He birdied 17 3 times.
Right.
So to win in that fashion, to be that guy, I think it's terrific for the game. Jordan Spieth winning the Masters and Fowler winning the Players' Championship. If the year keeps going this way, golf is, these TV contracts might go through the roof again with some of these guys.
Yeah.
We don't know.
No, sure.
But, with the Tiger Woods era coming maybe to a close, Phil Mickelson being 45 years old, the game needs some of these personalities.
You need to have a new generation of guys, and that's why you hope, guys like Rickie and guys like Jason Day, Dustin, and you need stars, and so those guys need to win, and they need to carry the sport. Everybody says a lot of the guys that are you talk the representatives. Why do you always have to interview our guys? Why can't you go interview? I'll never forget this manager lecturing the media one time. Well, why do you always have to interview our guy? All these other guys, they have these great charities and foundations and blah, blah, blah. They're all doing good work. And, okay, because it's a celebrity world, dude. Okay, we understand that you don't know anything about journalism or anything about, celebrity or whatever, TV. You just want your guy to be able to go over here and not talk to the media. Well, it's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got to care. You're really good, and you have kind of a responsibility. Listen, Michael Jordan talked after every Bulls game. Tiger Woods talked before every tournament he plays. Because there's a demand and expectation, and the fans need it, and it's good for the sport. So they basically do it.
Before we move on, Matt, you got to take a stance on the best player not to win a major.
Well, I'm going to just hop on Rickie's bandwagon. Well, I think that, that gives you a lot of momentum in the Chambers Bay is sort of an unknown course. nobody knows quite how that's going to fit.
Right.
Dustin Johnson play well at Pebble Beach, and they've kind of compared it to that, so maybe he breaks through there. But, I mean, I don't know. I think it gives Rickie Fowler...
Well, you have to give Dustin Johnson
the fuel
a chance to win it Whistling Straits at the PGA.
Well, we had Kerry Haig on when we talked to him about Dustin Johnson.
When I was looking up, stats for this for the podcast, I didn't realize that 2010 was the same year that he shot 82 in the final round of the U.S. Open at Pebble while leading by 3, and then later on, he grounds his club in the bunker, quote unquote bunker, the patch of sand randomly placed.
Which I actually walked in the day before.
Right, yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, all kinds of fans just tromping through this.
Right, which very well cost him that major as well. So 2010, not a great year for Dustin. But yeah, Kerry Haig says, and if you listen to the podcast last week, that will again be a bunker. They're not changing anything about it. They're playing the same number of bunkers.
Is that a bunker too?
Right. I mean, Dustin's got to be, holding his club 3 inches over every piece of turf at that place.
Exactly,
like, no way he grounds his club.
Well, you got to read the directions, but I don't think this caddy.
Well, I mean, that's fair. The only thing that's as you said was, I mean, I've never seen a bunker that people can stand in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you went to the 18th on Augusta National, you would let the fans. They would have the
people sunbathe.
They'd be walking in the bunker.
That's the part that doesn't make any sense to me. Why can there be a gallery there? But
well, these are
Well, I want to also just touch on just a couple of other big tournaments. Western Amateur is in late July, early August, at Rich Harvest Farms, which also hosts the International Crown, which was last year and again.
No, it's gonna and it's gonna be next
year. In 2016, you have a relationship with the International Crown, do you?
Yes.
In that, but Rich Harvest Farms, we went out there for the first time last week, and pretty spectacular golf compound.
The conditions are quite outstanding there. It's a very challenging course for sure, and a very, very unique piece of property. And the whole thing is really, really different. I mean, people would enjoy going out there. A lot of people did, and we had the Solheim Cup there in 2009. The LPGA did a tremendous presentation. They had a lot of fans. It was really, really terrific. And Michelle Wee played just out of her mind. She played great. So we're hoping the International Crown will be great next year too. This year, though, of course, you mentioned the Western Amateur. Chicago, really, in the world of golf, there's 3 big-time, really, really big-time amateur tournaments. There's the British Amateur, which is the oldest, and there's the U.S. Amateur, and there's the Western Amateur. And the U.S. Amateur is, viewed as a better tournament than the Western because, A, it's a national championship. B, supposedly they have the best field, but that's because they have twice as many players in the field. They have 300 players that start.
I don't agree with that.
So most of the players and coaches that you talk to will say the Western's got the best field because we only have 156, and it's an kind of an invitation.
Right.
You have to be ranked, and there's not a lot of big open, not anybody. Whereas the U.S. Amateur, to their credit, anybody can go out and try to qualify, and then guys that get in wind up getting in match play and wind up winning, and then you go, what happened? Anyway.
Well, the Western Amateur also has a better format.
What a grueling format.
The stroke play, then more stroke play, then you cut it down to the 16.
You could wind up actually. I went through the math a couple of years ago. And it's basically like you could playing if you win, if you get through all the match play and you get through all the matches, you've played 2 PGA Tour events within about 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. But it'll be great out there, and our defending champion is Bo Hostler. Our media day guests are going to be Doug Gim from the Chicago area, Arlington Heights.
Arlington Heights, right? Buffalo Grove High School.
Right, and he attends University of Texas.
With Bo Hostler.
With Bo Hostler, the defending champion, and both of them played in most of it. I think Doug missed one tournament. He played real well. His coach is real high on him. And then Nick Hardy.
We almost never talk about Nick Hardy on the podcast.
Probably never. People are gonna. Well, your loyal listeners will know he's from like Northbrook or something.
Right.
So
that's right.
anyway, they're going to be there for media day. Bo can't make it; he's traveling and doing something. But that'll be terrific. We'll have good local angle. They both made the Sweet 16 last year, and
Doug was the medalist. Is that?
Doug was the medalist, exactly right. And I believe
Nick Hardy was a semifinalist.
Right. And he Doug set the course record.
That's right. Yeah, he really tore the place up. Besides one hole, I'm forgetting what number it was, where I think I saw him drive it in the right trees 6 times. I think he probably cut a few of those down over the course of the week.
Well, more importantly, Nick Hardy is back to potentially get his respect back. John and I beat him and Nick Hardy and Teddy Greenstein at last year's media.
That's right.
Western Amateur media.
In a match play, match.
So Nick was playing with Teddy Greenstein.
Right. He had that heavy anchor.
For the Chicago Tribune.
Right.
Heavy anchor, yes.
Who we're hoping to have.
That was before Teddy started getting lessons from Joe Bosco.
Oh, that's
now
right.
Teddy is unbelievable.
Tell you what, he can get out of some trouble. He got that flop shot working where he can shoot it straight up over a tree that's 5 yards off the green.
Joe's a great
I don't know if he's not so great on the normal up and downs, but he can get it over those flop shots.
He played pretty well at the Ryder's Cup last year.
That's true. Barry, our captain at the Ryder's Cup, we won't get too much into it because I know nobody but us cares. But
not captain.
You're not the captain?
No, too controversial.
Oh,
traveling secretary.
okay.
Again, behind the curtain.
All right, that'll be later this summer as well. But
yeah, we're going to do a whole podcast on that, probably 3 hours.
Yeah, we will. And it's just
preview post game.
Yeah.
It'll be unbelievable.
And it's a great place to see these future guys. I mean, Jordan Spieth played there.
Oh, yeah.
Rickie Fowler played there.
Western Amateur.
The Western Amateur. I mean, it's a great way. You can walk down the fairway with these guys that you'll see on the PGA Tour. Yeah. And then, speaking of the PGA Tour, the BMW Championship is back at Conway Farms for the second time.
Mm-hmm.
In 3 years.
Yes.
And there's some changes. I know it's a little bit later, and we can talk more about it.
It's in mid-September.
And it still holds that third of 4 spots on the FedEx Cup, would be the top 70 players. So anybody that goes out there will see the best players in golf for that season.
Yeah.
So a lot of great golf in Chicago, and Barry, I think, is part of all of it.
Barry is the key to all of it.
He's the Forrest Gump of golf.
Yeah. And of course,
behind the curtain.
We'll be, I don't know if we told you this, but live podcast out at Rich Harvest Farms on May 27th. So we'll be excited to do that. Yeah, sit there and maybe.
And then we'll be back there July 2nd.
We're going to try to get out to Rich Harvest about as many times as possible this summer. I think that's probably a good strategy.
We'll be happy to accommodate you in any way.
But yeah, Barry, thanks a lot. Appreciate you sitting down with us. We're hit about our time limit here, but thanks a lot.
You're welcome, guys. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys.
Again, this is Teeing Off Podcast. You can follow it on Twitter at teeing__off. I'm John Borneman, John_Borneman on Twitter. Here with Matt Harness at Harness Preps and Barry Cronin, which you're on Twitter too, right? At Barry Cronin.
At BCRO27.
Is that where I am?
I
got another one too. I think at Barry Cronin.
I think you're just at Barry Cronin is the one that you still don't use most recently. So
yes.
Anyway, that's it for this time. Thanks for listening.
And I'm trying hard to recall the jump I saw at the outset. Oh, a big song, a wave and a storm is coming. We need to be safe, God, please send us something.